Welcome back to Beyond the Uniform. I'm Justin Siri, and each week I meet with a new military veteran to learn about their civilian career, what they do, how they got there, and advice for anyone else seeking to do the same. Today's episode number 191 with Roberto Portales.
So I remember Christmas of 2015, I hit 10,000 followers. And then every month since then, I would say I grew about 12 to 15,000. So it's just been, a nice progression. And I've done it just by being me, sharing my everyday life.
Well, today's interview is different from a lot of the ones I've done in the past in that Roberto is a social media influencer. It's not his full-time job, but on the side, he's built up over 315,000 followers on Instagram. I think it's a great episode because no matter what you do, publicity and social media and all of these things are going to play at least some part of that. And Roberto does a great job of describing what this journey has been like for him, how it is a great side outlet of creativity, how it's great supplemental income, and has been a lot of fun along the way. As always, at beyondtheuniform.io in the show notes, you will find links to the different books we discuss, different topics we talk about, as well as a text transcript of this interview in case you want to go back and revisit anything. Keep the feedback coming at the website, beyondtheuniform.io, or find me on LinkedIn. Bear with me if it takes me a little bit to get back to you, but I do appreciate the feedback and the pointers, and will do my best to respond. So with that, let's dive in to my interview with Roberto. Well, joining me today in Los Angeles, California is Roberto Portales. Roberto, welcome to Beyond the Uniform.
Hey, thanks for having me. It's nice to be here.
So I wanted to give first a special thanks to Brennan Randall. He recommended Roberto for the show and made the intro. For listeners, here's a quick background on Roberto. He is a client executive for healthcare and life sciences at NTT. But one of the reasons I was so excited to have him on the show is that he is also a social media influencer with over 315,000 followers on Instagram, where he goes by RJ Portales. He talks about technology, fitness, travel, lifestyle, meal preparation, and more. He started out at West Point, after which he served for 5 years as a counterintelligence officer. And just a quick side note, because I, for 8 years, ran a technology company called Storybox. We did a lot with Instagram marketing, and our pricing for companies that had 50,000 or less followers on Instagram was $300 a month. And the moment a company had more than just 50,000 Instagram followers, the pricing jumped up to $1,000 a month. And so when I see 315,000 followers on Instagram, that is no small feat. That is like really awe-inspiring to see someone achieve that. And so maybe, Roberto, to start things off, if you were talking to someone on active duty, how would you explain what a social media influencer is?
Sure. Well, I didn't really know what it was when I was first on active duty, and I didn't set off to be a social media influencer. It's one of those things where, I started off with MySpace back in high school, and that turned into Facebook, and Instagram came along, and I really didn't get an Instagram profile until quite a few years into it. I would say that I started Instagram maybe 3 years ago. And what an influencer is, it's just somebody that has a lot of followers, that has a certain theme or brand, almost like a TV show or a magazine. And they have their everyday normal content, but they also can partner with brands or TV shows or any type of government agency. I've done that as well, to just kind of give their followers and their viewers a little insight into other things that they do, and it's a good chance to sell advertisements as well.
What was the starting point? Like, what led you to get into this? And was it just like a side thing, or how did you even stumble into this?
So I just started Instagram as a normal user. I didn't really have the intent on becoming an influencer. Of course, I, like everybody, it's nice to see that people are following you. But I think what really made the jump for me was that I was in the counterintelligence officer course, and I was in Sierra Vista, Arizona, and there was not much going on there. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the area.
Mm-mm.
But I decided to get into physique bodybuilding, men's physique competitions. And I went through a 3-month body transformation that I didn't cheat once on my diet. I hit every single workout. I didn't deviate from that program at all. And I made an impressive change. And I competed, and I did well, and I competed again and again. And I noticed that as I was kind of sharing my transformation and sharing my bodybuilding competitions with my followers, that my numbers really started to increase. Other pages were sharing my photos. They were tagging me in them. That brought a lot more attention to me. There were some celebrities that would, follow me and like my photos, and then that went out to all their followers. So I think I remember Christmas of 2015, I hit 10,000 followers. And then every month since then, I would say I grew about 12 to 15,000. So it's just been, a nice progression. And I've done it just by being me, sharing my everyday life. I like to travel a lot, so there's a lot of interesting photos I take from that. But also just those everyday motivational tips that I give, because I've been through, body transformation. I've been through not being in the best shape and trying to get there. And I think it just helps people to see that it's not impossible, that you can do what you set your mind out to do.
When you were at West Point, I mean, was this part of a big part of your life? Just kind of obviously, anyone at a service academy, there's some level of fitness. But were you like on the football team, or was like athletics a big part of your military undergrad experience?
Athletics is always a big part if you're at West Point. But what happened to me is I actually tore my ACL sophomore year. Mm. And I went through, a whole 6 months of recovery. And then my other knee, I tore that meniscus. So I went through more rehab. So I kind of wasn't doing all that well with my body just because of those injuries. Mm. And also, I mean, this is a little bit personal, but I definitely wasn't in a good mental space junior, senior year, and even, my first year as a second lieutenant. Mm. And I think that I ate and drank a little bit too much, and I wasn't in the best shape.
Yeah.
And, I mean, I wasn't failing PT tests or anything, but I definitely wasn't what you would expect an officer to be as far as fitness. And I remember I got to Afghanistan, and my battalion commander told me that, hey, you're going to take over a platoon in 3 months. And that was the motivation that I needed to say, I have to change things right now.
Wow.
I have to, figure this out, deal with what I'm dealing with, and just get into shape. And that's when I researched, studied, developed a program that I wanted to try. I did that. I lost 40 pounds in 3 months. I took over my platoon, then I gained 20 pounds of muscle back, and I came back to the United States just a completely different person physically.
Wow.
But then it was still a few years later in the counterintelligence school that I decided to get way more serious and really go from, good to great.
That's incredible. And when it comes to Instagram, what does this entail on a day-to-day basis? Is this something that takes minutes a day? Do you spend a good amount of time on this, or what does this influencer side of your career look like?
Yeah, so some people can get sucked into an Instagram or social media obsession and spend way too much time on their phones. I've found myself falling into that occasionally, but I try not to spend too much time on it. If there's something interesting going on in my day, I might, snap a video or a boomerang for a story. If I'm meal prepping, I have a technique to share. I might do something informational. If I've always been a big pro wrestling fan since I was a little kid. One of my good friends as a WWE wrestler, and randomly I'll grab friends and do a wrestling move and do a little video here and there just to kind of goof around. But I actually, whenever I'm in a situation, whether I'm at a cool house, I'm traveling, I might be in the gym, at a cool beach, I say, hey, it's a good opportunity for a photo. And I don't obsess over getting something perfect. I take a few photos, make sure the lighting's okay, and say, hey, look, this is what it is. And I don't obsess over getting everything exactly perfect. I'd rather just share my experiences in my life rather than, obsess over how every single little thing looks in my profile. And I just put it out there and see what people think of it.
That's great. Is this, I know we talked about in the bio, healthcare and life sciences at NTT. How does what you do on Instagram relate to your day job?
So it doesn't relate to my day job at all, other than I do travel a little bit for work, so it allows me the opportunity to take pictures in different cities. They're completely separate for me. I make sure that I'm not doing social media while I'm trying to do my regular day-to-day job. That's one thing. But it's very easily doable for any regular person who has a regular job to be on social media. I think actually that's what probably makes my Instagram a little bit more attractive to people. Is they say, hey, here's a corporate America guy who finds the time to stay in shape and eat right and work out. I'm not, a full-time fitness trainer who that's all I do every day. So no kidding, I should be in shape. So I think it just gives people something to say, hey, look, if he can do it, I can do it, because I don't do anything special. I just, I have my program. I plan out my meals and I just follow it. And I still work and I travel and I do what I got to do.
I was going to ask about kind of growing an audience, especially if anyone listening is aspiring to go down this path. It sounded like earlier one of the biggest things that helped you grow your audience is consistency and doing this for a long time. And I was envisioning maybe you hit some inflection point where then you were getting 50,000 people a month or something like that. But it sounds like it's been consistent. Is that accurate?
Yeah, it's been very consistent. I would say with the different algorithm changes and whatnot, it's been a little bit slower than it was at the beginning. And it's much more fluctuating now. Primarily because I think, Instagram, they sell sponsored posts, so they want to reach more people. They want you to pay for that.
Yeah.
And I've never wanted to pay to reach a larger audience. I've tried to do it all organically.
Wow.
So I think I have slowed a little bit. But that being said, as I do new things, as I get a little bit into entertainment, because of Instagram, I booked a truth campaign commercial that I did. I've also been pitched around for different TV shows and entertainment as well. So I have that all going on in the background as well. And I think if one of those things takes off, that'll help grow the social media as well. It kind of goes hand in hand. I remember seeing on HQ Trivia that Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson was the highest paid actor last year, and it was primarily because of his social media influence. How that works in tandem nowadays.
Yeah.
Where if you're an actor, you're a TV personality, you need to have a following, because that's your built-in audience base right there.
It's yeah, it's true. I mean, we were talking right before we started the recording, and you had pointed out, and it's true. It's like so many different people now need to cultivate a social following. That's it's everything from authors and artists, like you had said, and personalities, but it's a powerful complement to whatever you're doing. And one thing I think that's cool about your situation is you've got your day job, but this seems like such an incredible outlet for creativity and for learning and for expression. I can imagine that it scratches a lot of itches that might not be met in a traditional day-to-day job.
Absolutely. And it's given me great opportunities to meet a lot of cool people as well. That's another thing, that it really connects people.
Do one of the things I was going to ask about is, I mean, it seems like you focused on Instagram, and first I'm wondering if that's true, but also kind of what drew you to Instagram over other social media platforms.
Yeah, so obviously I had a MySpace and a Facebook before, and Instagram I've only had for a little over 3 years. But that's just the platform that really took off for me first. And like I mentioned before, I didn't set off creating Instagram to say, hey, I want to be an influencer. It just sort of happened, and being business minded and the entrepreneur that I am, I definitely cultivated it and grew it to where it is, and hopefully continue to grow it. I have other friends who are way bigger than I am, and they're on YouTube or Twitch or some other platform like that. And I think it really just, the platform that you pick really just goes with what is your personality. If you like shooting and editing videos, then obviously some sort of YouTube or video streaming service. If you're more of a thought provocateur and you like to, tweet, maybe Twitter's the platform for you. But I think it is important to be on all the platforms. So even though I'm not big on Twitter, I'm not big on YouTube, I'm not big on Facebook, I still have those platforms available.
If someone's listening right now, maybe they're on active duty and what you're saying excites them, do you have any advice for someone who wants to become an influencer?
Yeah, I would say, so a couple things, especially for military members. One, you gotta make sure that what you're posting is appropriate, and make sure that you have that you're. I mean, you can be a little. I mean, I post. Obviously, I'm in fitness, so I have a lot of shirtless pictures, but I don't have anything that I would be embarrassed for my mother to see. Let's just say that. And that goes for people in corporate America. That goes for people, in every walks of life. You don't want to have inappropriate things on your page, but also brands aren't going to want to work with you if you have things that aren't necessarily family friendly. I would say you also need to make sure that you're posting consistently, whether that be every day, every other day, a couple of times a week. You have to give people a reason to keep following you. You have to vary it up a little bit. You don't want to post the same. I've seen some profiles where it's the same photo over and over again, and sometimes I fall into that trap of posting similar content, so I definitely try to change it up and have some variety. But I also stick to what my brand is. I stick to the, ex-Army officer, or I'm sorry, former Army officer, fitness, meal prep, travel, technology. I stick to what I know. Also, it's important to interact with other users. I've met, a couple of my best friends on Instagram, and we do photos together and we make videos together, and it just kind of helps grow each other's audience as well, just in a natural, fun way.
One thing I realize as you say all this is that this is just a theory. I'd love your feedback on this, but it's like, because you're posting about fitness and meal prep and things like that, I'm just imagining it's also a way to keep you continuing to deepen your own knowledge. It's continuing to keep this fresh for you, and you're always having to learn more. And I'm wondering if you found that to be one of the benefits of this, is it's almost like gaming this so that you're always deepening and growing and learning because you're having to share it with others. Is that true, would you say?
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And it keeps me, it kind of also, what's the word I'm thinking of? It kind of keeps me accountable as well.
Yep.
Because if I'm going to talk about fitness, then I have to stay in shape.
Yeah.
And I try different programs. I've tried different techniques, whether it be FST7, German volume training, Chris Gethin's DTP. And I found what works best for me.
Yep.
And I've actually cultivated and created different training and fitness programs. And I'm actually developing an application right now that people will be able to download the application and see exactly what I do. And it'll even have videos of me doing those exercises so that if they need to understand how to do that or learn how to do that, they can just watch me do it. And, I just want to have a further way, and they'll be able to track their workouts in there, and follow my philosophies around rest breaks and training to failure and tracking your workouts. So I'm finding another way to connect closer with people, because I do get a lot of messages and emails every day about what's your program, specific questions about this and that, and it can be a cumbersome process to try to answer all those. So I decided just to put it all out there on an app so that everybody can just go to it.
That's great.
And if there's community questions, then answer them in a community format on that app.
How I'm wondering, I imagine people listening, and when you see on popular media talking about these influencers, there's sometimes this sense that you do this and then you make a lot of money and then you're just able to do that full time. And I'm wondering if you have any maybe not sobering, but like any words of wisdom for maybe someone who's on active duty who's like, this sounds great, I'm going to do this, I'm going to get out of the military, I'm just going to do this, and that's going to be my full-time job.
Yeah, I definitely, unless I have a friend he's got 5 or 6 million followers on YouTube. He does that full time, and nobody's saying that he can't do that. Wow. He does really well. So I mean, if you're in that category, absolutely full time. If I had that many followers on YouTube, I would be doing that full time, 100%. It's definitely it can be a good supplemental income thing, and it doesn't require that much time. But I wouldn't say that social media influencing in and by itself is going to be a living, unless, like I said, you are on YouTube and you have millions and millions of followers. I think it helps you get into other areas, and it helps you increase revenue sources from other things.
Yeah. Because
of Instagram, like I said, I booked a commercial, I booked modeling gigs, I booked different things, and that revenue isn't directly, seen on social media, but it's because of the social media following that I booked that work.
Yeah.
So I think it's a good way to get into other areas as well.
Are those,
one thing?
Oh no, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was saying one thing. Sure. One thing that I make sure that I don't do, and I don't want people, or I like to caution other people who are trying to be influencers, is a lot of brands are going to come to you and ask you to collaborate, and they want to pay you, or they don't want to pay you, they want to give you free products or whatnot. It's really important to only work with the brands that you believe in, that you use, that you want to share with other people. I would say that I probably turn down 70% of requests that I get because it's just not a right fit for me. So it's really important to make sure that whatever types of collaborations or sponsorships you're doing, it relates to you, it relates to your brand, and that you believe in it and that you actually use it.
Yep. I mean, that was one of the things I was curious about too, is, when you talk about the things that have come out of this, how much of that has been you pursuing these things versus you're doing this on Instagram and these opportunities come to you?
I think, funny story, I think never once has a brand that I pursued, gotten back to me and said, yes, we want to. Yeah. So I mean, there's brands that I'd love to work with, trust me. And the funny thing is that there are brands that I have reached out to, didn't hear back, and then I hear from an agency a couple months later, unrelated. So it's usually agencies that are reaching out to me. I think maybe once or twice I've worked with a brand directly. It's usually, I have an agency and then the brand has an agency, and it's, a lot of people doing all the contracts and negotiating and stuff in between.
And that was, I was also curious, is there a lot of negotiating, or is it that the brand comes and says, we're willing to give you this in exchange for that, and it's kind of a take it or leave it, and how you even know from a negotiating standpoint it's in so many ways still the Wild West, like even to know what a post from you is worth, or what, how do you determine the value of any of these things?
Sure. And I think it really depends on if it's a PR type post or if it's a marketing type post. If it's a PR type post, they just want people to see it. If I've done stuff in the past for TV shows, they just want people to see it. It's not like somebody's trying to sell you a product that you have to buy. You just, go to the History Channel, watch the show. That's one thing. And I think that the way that they analyze and come up with prices for that is different than, hey, we want you, to use this promo code so your followers can buy this product. And I tend to stay away from those marketing posts and focus more on the PR type posts. I've noticed that a lot of, friends that are influencers and stuff, they don't really have a good idea of how to work with these agencies and brands, and they get taken advantage of.
Yeah.
I get offers all the time like, hey, take this product and post for it. Well, hey, the post is worth a lot more than the product is worth in some people's situations. So, I know what I charge for a post. And, when I'm talking to a brand, that's what it is, unless it's a good cause or something that I'm not really looking at the money for. Like I've posted for the VA before, where I'm not really concerned about the money. If it's, a purely commercial corporate transaction, then, you have to pay what I believe it's worth. And I have a sense of what it's worth based on what I've done before, and how my price increases as my following increases. But no, there's been many times where, I get a low offer and I say, hey, thank you. I really appreciate the offer. I never, I always appreciate when people reach out with an offer. If you can come up to this, I'd love to do it. If not, I totally understand. And, I respectfully pass on it. And there are times when, they come back and offer a little bit more and there's some negotiating, or there's times where they don't have the budget for that. And maybe their campaign focuses on some micro influencers.
I like that a lot. I think that applies to many different career paths, but the sense of the extent to which I would go so far as say it's values, but as the extent to which your values are what you really want, it makes it easy to say yes or no to things without any resentment or without any anger. It's like, just as similarly as what you just described, if someone listening to this knows that when they get out of the military, they want to live in a certain geographic area, or maybe they have a financial need that they need to meet, well, then it's easy to say no to the opportunities that don't match that. And it may take a while to find exactly the right thing. It may take, a lot of extra work, but there's a certain strength in that when when you're saying, look, this is my price per post. And if that doesn't match, then it's just not a good fit. I think that in my experience, that resolve, it just takes a lot more discipline than one would think, because you have to, it's
hard to walk away from a couple $1,000.
I was going to say, that's got to be tough.
To post a photo. It's
yeah,
hard.
yeah.
And people take whatever they can get sometimes. And I said, hey,
Yep.
word gets around though, and they say, hey, I know this guy will do it for a lot less. I kind of have a sense that we all need to stick together and only accept what we're worth for these posts, and don't get the wool pulled over our eyes.
I love that. And okay, so one thing I'm just thinking of is so the work that you're doing, this fitness in nature, that in and of itself takes a tremendous amount of discipline to, even you said when you did this first 3-month thing, you're doing 3 months without missing a workout and not deviating from this diet. So that takes a tremendous amount of...
Yes, but that was when I was competing.
Yep.
And my philosophy now has been enjoying life, living in moderation.
Yep.
And look, I don't look like I did when I was competing.
Yep.
I would love to if I didn't have to work that hard.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm very happy looking decent, being healthy, and having fun, and going out on the weekends and hanging with my friends and eating what I want to eat, and having a few drinks if I want to. That's really what I advocated.
I
People
love that
living
too.
Their lives,
yeah,
enjoying it.
But I think I'm guessing that your discipline is higher than most when it comes to physical things, and I just, it seems like the work that you're doing on Instagram, yes, I get that it's only posting once a day or whatever it is, but it's like that takes a certain amount of discipline, and then being able to walk away from great offers that aren't exactly what you're looking for takes a certain amount of discipline. I'm curious if you have any recommendations around that? Is there something that's helped you stay the course on these things when others might cave in, or things that have helped you build up that muscle of being able to do things day in, day out like that?
Well, as far as, the posting and the fitness go, I think it's just that, army mentality of, hey, this is what I have to do today.
Yeah.
And I just get it done. As far as walking away from offers that aren't the right fit or they're not the right price, I would say it's because it's not my full-time job. If this was my only source of income, then I'd probably be more tempted to take things that I probably shouldn't. But because I have a regular, normal corporate America job, I can afford to not take offers that I don't want to take. And I don't need it to survive. Sure, it's always great to have a little extra money, but I'm not going to sell out or compromise what I believe in just for, because I need to eat.
I love that. I always think of an author, Elizabeth Gilbert, wrote this book, Big Magic, and it's a great audiobook, but she was the author of Eat, Pray, Love, which I never read, but I love this book, Big Magic. It's about how to live a creative life, and one of the things she talks about is the authors that she meet who want to quit their job and write full time. And she always cringes at that and says, don't put that much pressure on your inspiration. That's a surefire way to really clam up the inspiration and the fun from writing. And one of the things I'm hearing from you is that too, is like the fact that you do have a full-time job, it allows you to grow this organically. It allows you to walk away from things. It gives you a lot more freedom and creative control than if this was your only source of income. And I imagine that comes with a little bit more maybe desperation or white knuckling it because you need it to succeed, rather than everything you're doing right now is a bonus. It's just a supplemental income, like you'd said previously.
Exactly, and it's also fun for me. I don't stress out about, I posted a photo and it's not getting the engagement that I thought I was going to get. It's okay, I'll post another one tomorrow. It's not. I don't need to live off of that.
Yep.
So that helps keep it fun for sure.
One of the things I wanted to ask about is, I've done 190 of these interviews, and one of the themes that has come up in talking to veterans is many veterans, not all, but many veterans struggle with what they would consider selling themselves in an interview, or really promoting themselves and networking and talking about their accomplishments. And it's something that seems more fundamental to what you do. I mean, even the fact that you're like posting photos of yourself with your shirt off, things like that, it's something that not everyone would do. And I'm curious, do you have any advice for people about how to be more comfortable advocating for themselves, or to be more comfortable taking risks and putting themselves out there? Because honestly, like I take a lot of risk. I'm an entrepreneur, and I see the risk in what you're doing and how much courage that takes to be like your own personal brand. And there's this inner critic inside of me that, if I was in your shoes, would be saying like, oh, who are you to be doing this? And I admire that you're able to get past that. And so I'm just kind of curious if you have any advice to other veterans about that aspect of confidence or comfort taking risks like that.
Sure. Well, there's a couple things I'll touch on. First of all, forget about Instagram for a second. When I was interviewing for different corporate America jobs, you're in the interview to talk about yourself. And it's uncomfortable for people to get past that. But the interviewers know it. You should be okay where you don't seem like you're being conceited or anything. You're there because they want to learn about you. And you have to separate, hey, I'm in an interview, versus, hey, I'm out at dinner, I'm just going to talk about myself, in a group of people. Those are two completely different things. When it comes to Instagram and putting yourself out there, of course I get negative comments and messages all the time. But what my saying is that if I don't know you personally, I don't take it personally. It doesn't bother me one bit. I post photos and I said, oh, you don't have any abs, or, this or that, or whatever. And it's just water off my back. And I'm happy with who I am, what I look like, and I just it's not always been that way. That's for sure. I definitely had more issues when I was, going through things at West Point or my first year as an officer, where I didn't have this mentality. And I'm sure a lot of other veterans and people out there on active duty, when you've been through something tough like combat or deployments or hard trainings at NTC, it kind of makes other things that you thought were important not seem that important. And those, you go to Afghanistan and you see how, some other people live and how bad those conditions can be. And it just kind of made me, at least, be a lot more happy and comfortable with who I am and what I have. And to not worry about petty little things and people say this or that or make comments. And yeah.
I love that.
I put myself out there and see what happens.
I love that thought, that quote you have, if I don't know you, I don't take it personally. And I just imagine like you are more in the public scrutiny, and that attracts just people who are using anonymity to their advantage and just saying stuff that you would never say in person. And I love that you're cultivating a mindset that I imagine it's still challenging at times, but cultivating that mindset of not taking that personally and just and prioritizing the opinions of people that actually know you, that you actually care about. And that's, I imagine that's just another muscle that you're building up too, is just that resilience.
100%. And I'm not a perfect guy. I mean, I make mistakes, and I have my friends tell me, hey, you come across this way or that way. And I take that advice and I try to fix my mistakes and become a better person. And, I respect that helpful criticism. But, the negative trolling and stuff that is just meant to hurt people, I don't even let it bother me.
That's great. I always like to ask about resources, and I'm just curious if there's any book or podcast, movie, conference, online program, anything that's helped you in your career as an influencer or just your civilian career in general. But I'm hoping to give anyone listening right now who's on a station or a ship or overseas something that they could act on today to start preparing for their next career or their civilian life.
Yeah, well, apart from everything, I've always been very big into personal finance and investing. And I think I read a book, A Random Walk Down Wall Street, and it changed my whole perspective on investing and planning long term. And, I'm a bit of a gambler, so I like to write options and trade those sorts of things in my younger years just for fun. But nowadays, because I've invested and saved so much for retirement and, and bought properties and done much, it gives me the flexibility to do what I want to do with my life. Maybe as time moves on, I might want to get out of corporate America and, be in entertainment or do a TV show or something. And because I've set myself up financially, not because I've made the most money, but because I've tried to be smart with it and invest it properly, it's given me a lot more flexibility, midlife. So I would say to all those, especially those young servicemen and women, really get on your retirement investments, plan long term, read A Random Walk Down Wall Street if you have time, and take advantage of the TSP.
That's great. And for listeners, I'll add a link to A Random Walk Down Wall Street in the show notes so you can check that out. Well, I always like to leave the last question open-ended, and you've answered a lot of great questions that I had, but I'm sure there's things I didn't ask about, and I just want to give you space at the end. If there's anything we haven't talked about that you want to share with listeners, I'll turn it over to you to share whatever that might be.
Yeah, sure. I lucked into having a lot of followers on social media. It's definitely nice to have. I feel like I get to share my life with more people. It's given me opportunities to do a lot of good things, but it's not the end all be all. If, your friends and family love to see what you're doing, and, that should be good enough if it's not in your cards to be an influencer or to to do something, in social media. So it's just a good tool to have. I lucked into it. I definitely cultivated and keep trying to grow it, but it's not the end all be all. It doesn't make anybody better than anybody else because they have more followers. Everybody is, their own person. And I remember somebody said that having a lot of Instagram followers is like being rich in Monopoly money, which is not necessarily true because you can make money from it, but from a pure following perspective, it's not everything. There's more things in life than just being popular on social media.
Well, Roberto, I appreciate your time today, and I appreciate sharing your story with Beyond the Uniform.
Absolutely. It's great talking to you.
Surface.
All right. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed Roberto's story. I hope you start something on social media or just something creatively that will light you up and give you that nice side outlet. And check out his book, A Random Walk Down Wall Street. Not his book, but the book he recommended. I'm going to check that one out as well. Definitely agree with him on the importance of personal finances and just having that under wraps to give you the freedom and autonomy to pursue exactly what you want to do. I will be back on Thursday with a rebroadcast episode and back next Monday with a new episode. Take care.